Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another workout. And today was dynamic effort bench press day. The scale was down a hair today. I'm back down to 219. No real change in diet other than maybe I've added a little more protein in, and the scale's coming back down, so that's a good thing, which means everything's on point. And when I start doing the extra conditioning work with the farmer's walks out there, and I'll have to possibly adjust to deal with recomp and all that stuff. But everything's coming along good. Today I increased the band tension a little bit. I think the direction I'm wanting to go, and as I've said before, with the concurrent periodization, is I'm going to work more and more on speed, and any eccentric loading type stuff I'm going to do more and more on my dynamic days, with more and more of the heaviest stuff on the max effort days. So in keeping with that, I'm trying to maximize speed. I'm going with a little less weight and a little more band tension. Now, once I get this sorted to where I feel like the best band tension percentages are, I'll ease back into proper waves again. And as I said before, the speed work waves, I'm just going to stick with straight bands and rotate bars. I'm going to rotate bars instead of rotating bands to chains. Now, I am noticing you guys see that little drop of slack in the bottom. I need to sort that. There's a little bit of adjustment I can do with those band pegs. I thought that was going to be fine today, but I need to pull that a hair tighter. No loss, though, because it's still 100 pounds. That's 100 pounds of band tension, for those curious. And one of the things I want to talk about with you guys more and more as we go is the eccentric loading component of bands. Because, you hear all these evidence-based guys, they want to talk about eccentric loading, and then they do silly stuff like just do a slow negative. Well, slow negatives don't create more eccentric loading. There's not one good bit of research that's ever shown that slow negatives even increase muscle growth. Yet we know eccentric overload produces muscle growth. Well, bands allow for overspeed eccentrics, and they create extra soreness just in strength athletes who mess with them. And then start looking at certain people who do some of their stuff with bands. I'll give you guys a perfect example of a guy who's really jacked on YouTube. A lot of you know who he is. He's popular. Bugenhagen. Doesn't he do arm and delt work and stuff with bands year round? He mentions that he does that. Why do you think that is? Because of the overspeed eccentrics you get with bands. And that's something I need to talk about more too. I'm probably going to make a video on that. Someone said, oh yeah, man, using those chains, that's just like using a cable. It's like, no, it's nothing like using a cable. Bands and chains create a curve in your strength, right? There's contrast weight. Cables are constant. People say, what? Yeah, your cable machine is a constant tension, just like a barbell is. I don't know why people get that idea. It's just that you change the center of gravity. But that's a different topic entirely. You guys will notice today I'm going to do bands for the smaller exercises, and I'll do chains on the heavy days. And it has to do with the fact that bands create, again, more possible muscle tearing, more eccentric overloading. And that's one of the things that anyone who's worked with them realizes very, very quickly. Even if you're doing singles with speed pulls, right? Or you're doing max deadlifts against bands, what's one of the things you notice? It's one of the things you notice. The eccentric loading. The way the bar pulls you back down. And the muscles you feel it in, the first time you do it, you're extremely sore the next day. We're creating an eccentric overload. I would rather keep all of that into 2 days every week. So I would much rather have that training effect be on the backside of my training each week before my 2 days off, and then we go into all the heavy work. So then we lift heaviest on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then we do all the speed work and anything that's got an eccentric component, and worry about things like a stretch reflex on these days, which is what we're keeping with. So if you notice, as far as accessories go, what do we do on Tuesdays for benching? Floor press and extensions, right? They're big constant weight, heavy weight, a little more conventional, even though I'm doing chains for the skull crushers. Today we do dips. Well, dips have a stretch reflex, don't they? And one of the things I'm doing too between my max days and my speed days, I am using slightly different exercises for the assistance movements too. People would say, why? Organization of my tracking. It lets me track each exercise. It's hard, like if I just did dips, right? Let's say I just did dips both days. It's hard to track your progress because it's a different form of fatigue from max work versus speed work. you're going to find you can't always handle the exact same weights for the reps and sets. It makes tracking a little more inconsistent. I would rather just use 2 exercises that fit with the theme of the workout. So what we're going to see is more and more of my actual days looking different, because for a little while I was doing the same assistance movements on both. Now we're rotating it. Now things like rows will stay consistent because these are just a staple exercise. And they're always going to be in a way a supplemental lift. I'm not going to program them much because they're just there to put that workload in that area. And things like my curls will make them increase. My deadlifting will even make them increase over time because the lats will get stronger. So it's just an exercise that feeds into the flow. But that's really what a lot of the stuff on the backside is, other than the stuff that's direct carryover. Right? We know good mornings are going to have carryover to the deadlift. We know floor presses and dips are going to have direct carryover to the bench, so they do need a certain amount of programming. The more hypertrophy-oriented ones that we're just doing to thicken things up, and maybe some patterns, like with this. Again, I'll work more once I have a different bar for this, maybe trying to hold it for just a brief second at the top, just for that little better isometric contraction. But it's not that big of a deal. I'm just using these to build my upper back and extra grip exercise and everything else. And as you guys can see here, you couldn't tell so much on the bench because, again, a little loose skin when everything comes up. I'm losing fat. I mean, I'm back down to 219 today. So the scale is drifting back down. So I think it's, again, we can start to see the recomp happening. Definitely lost body fat, though. So yeah, I mean, this training is working. This training style is working. I'm happy with it. It's slow, but it's working, and I feel good, and it's enjoyable. And someone had said in the comments, Jason, you're overcomplicating training. No, when I do minimalist training, everyone says I don't complicate it enough. When I start training the way elite athletes train, people think I'm overcomplicating it. I'm really not. Is this level of complexity too much for an intermediate? Probably so. In other words, if you bench 270 and you deadlift 450, I don't know that this is really necessary. Probably isn't. When you're where I'm at and you're saying, okay, I'm an advanced lifter, master's lifter, I'm advanced, I want to be elite, and I need to just improve my overall performance and athleticism. All right, this makes sense. Because it's not just about being the big three. It's like I want to be like a lot of the elite lifters you do see out there. Being a good strength athlete. Notice athlete who happens to specialize in squat, bench, and deadlift. We need all these performance elements, though. We need good body composition. We need explosiveness. We need jumping ability. We need conditioning. Right? That's just part of being an athlete. And I have the free time to do it. So dips. I added 10 pounds today. That black plate's only 10 pounds, for those curious. You can go look that up on the Rogue site. Those are Rogue rubberized 10-pound plates. Just 3 sets of 10. These are nice and challenging. These are hard for me. It's not a lot of weight, but I did speed bench first. And that's the thing. I've just now come back to dips. I'm relearning the movement pattern. Yes, I've obviously been stronger in the past, but this is volume work with it. We're going to learn the movement pattern, then I'll focus on getting stronger on it. All right, here's what I mean about doing band work for this stuff, right? Bands. Why? Over speed eccentric. And notice the exercises I do are exercises that aren't as dependent upon the bottom of the movement anyways. So it's not that big of a deal. This exercise, the side delt doesn't even get recruited until we get halfway up. And I'm doing these to, again, thicken up my side delts because I need them. All right, if you're not blasting gear, it's real hard to build proportionate side delts. It'll help with my bench stability, and this is just a filler exercise. And it doesn't take any time. You know how little time it takes to just come and do 4 sets of these with bands at the end of a bench session? It takes nothing. But you'll notice it's eccentric based. So if you want to talk about eccentric overloading, and all these evidence-based guys, they think that a slow movement is eccentric overloading. It's not. It isn't. Just because you slow down doesn't do crap for the muscle fiber recruitment. How about a fast eccentric because the band jerks you down? The band jerks you down at the top. Right there at the peak contraction, the band jerks you back. because of the stored energy in it. That creates an eccentric effect at the point of peak tension on that muscle. Do that for volume. Do that for 4 sets of 12. Right? That's eccentric overloading on a muscle. That's a lagging muscle. And my side delts do lag, right? We all know that. They definitely lag compared to guys on a gram of gear. Right? This is how you do something like that. It's not because you come in and do 20 sets. Come in and do quality focused work. Same thing. Do hammer curls. Now this band was too light, so I did the last 2 sets with a heavier band. Same thing. Eccentric overloading right there at the top. That's all we're trying to do. And again, I'm going to vary these. I'll keep doing these with chains on my heavy days, and then my speed days we'll do them with bands, because we're already creating eccentric overloading from the overspeed eccentrics on the speed work, right? Let's go ahead and finish the smaller muscles off with the same thing. It's fine. Creating the same training effect through multiple muscle groups. Benefit from it. And yes, I only did a few sets of these. I'm going to have to build up to these. Because again, at the end of a workout, these can be very, very fatiguing. Because you guys got to remember, this isn't the little light bands that are at your gym. These are power bands. This is not just like 10 pounds of weight. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.